Hey everybody, today we are talking about the book 1 Year After by William R Forstchen. This, of course, is the follow-up to 1 Second After, which came out, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. It was a bestseller. It was pretty big on the mainstream and also in the kind of doomsday apocalyptic fiction world too, so he definitely crossed over. It was a very well-written book too, really gut-wrenching in some scenes. Basically what happened in that, I assume most people watching this would be familiar with 1 Second After, but and there was an EMP attack and over the United States, and it chronicles the life of a man, John Matherson or something. He's a retired Army colonel and a history professor at a small private university in this fairly well-to-do North Carolina mountain town. On my blog, I did a write-up about it, but one thing I remember saying is that I liked the character of Matherson because even though he is like an Army veteran, they don't make him out to be like some kind of fucking like recon sniper, Billy Badass ninja guy or something. Pretty kind of a mundane guy. I mean, he's a strong patriarch figure, but not like exactly the most, not really like superhero material like you see in a lot of these books. Now anyway, so yeah, there was this EMP attack, and he covers a lot of aspects that we don't really think about. For instance, in real life and in the book, the author's daughter is a type 1 diabetic and needs insulin. And now, since there's no more insulin production after an EMP, doesn't take her very long to die. I think she has like a couple months or something, and throughout the book you kind of watch her die, and this guy, there's nothing he can do about it. And then also there's a pretty harrowing scene of going into a nursing home and kind of the conditions that go on in there. Those are things like I probably will never forget. They're definitely going to stick with me. So anyway, moving on to 1 Year After, which is actually more like 2 years after, I think. But life in Black Mountain, I believe the town's name is, there's a little bit more normalcy to it. There's after they kind of got back on their feet after the big attack against the town, and 1 Second After, where the type of guys that are typical in all the doomsday books show up and try to ruin the day, but they stop them or whatever. They still don't have electricity. They still don't really have a whole lot of contact with the outside world. There's been some reestablishment with like the post office, like a little bit. They talk in one part. They talk about somebody got a letter from Indiana, and they were kind of all thrilled about that. Anyway, this book, it's worth reading if you did like the first one, just to kind of carry on with it. But I really don't think it has the same emotional punch as the first one did. And part of that because this book, 1 Year After, it's centered around conflict and also difficult decision making as far as kind of like, the old phrase, like a shit sandwich and everyone's got to take a bite. Matherson in this book, the protagonist, he has to make really weigh a lot of decisions, like, well, if I do this, I guess, it's not a spoiler, but basically most of the young people in the town get draft notices from the new federal government, and, there's some people that are into the idea, and most people aren't into the idea. They're kind of like, well, who are these guys? We haven't seen these guys in 2 years, and now they want to take most of our security and labor forces and so forth to, God knows where. But and then there's a figure in Asheville, I believe, that's like the regional director for the federal government, and he's kind of a huckster, shady guy, and a lot of the book is based on conflict between John Matherson and this guy, and some of the deals he proposes to, like if he comes back as a major general, he'll draft half as many people from this town, as opposed to if he doesn't, he'll draft the whole 120 or whatever they're asking for. There's also a lot about rules of war, and you know, kind of like how far a government will or can go to bring order, and kind of at what cost this comes in. But anyway, where I'm going with this is, like, although like that's all fine and well, the first one, the emotional delivery of that was more about hunger, watching things happen that are out of your hands, such as the death of family members that there was nothing he could do about, and just, I mean, real abject misery. Like, you know, there's one scene of an elderly couple, like, trying to eat a box of thawed frozen waffles at a grocery store, like, immediately afterwards. You know, they just kind of stick with you, I guess. You know, all the starvation and so forth. These are very, very base level things that really get in your head. Whereas, I mean, honestly, like, the kind of conflict in this book is a little more abstract to us. Although maybe not to everybody in the world. So it doesn't, to me, I don't feel it quite registers the same. But there still is an emotional touch to that, and there's a lot of kind of subtle or maybe not so subtle references to our current wars overseas. A lot of people involved are veterans of these wars and so forth, and there's references to that. But that some of the things that happen over there in this book are now happening right here on our soil, and we don't really like it much. The character of Matherson in this one, he's a little more sure of himself, I guess you would say. It seems like a little more commanding, but he's still within the parameters of a believable character, as opposed to some authors in this genre where they have a guy that, a karate expert that's mixed between like MacGyver and Rambo, and has a pocket full of silver and a heart full of gold, saves the world, I guess. But I don't know, it's definitely worth checking out, and it did lay the ground, I believe, for a third book. You know, who knows when and if we'll see that, but the material is there for that. So anyway, yeah, that's oh yeah, I guess I'll go over real quick what happened in the world. There was the EMP attack over the United States, which took out the U.S. and Canada, more or less. And now, after that, Mexico invades part of the U.S. and China invades part of the U.S. under a humanitarian guise. And then when an EMP landed over Eastern Europe that took out European Russia and Eastern Europe, the Great Britain and Western Europe, I think, were fine. Japan got taken out, and then it was believed that North Korea and Iran were behind the EMP attack, and I guess they got nuked by submarines or whatever. A lot of this is set up by BBC shortwave broadcasts. They're kind of interesting. I caught a couple of Red Dawn references in this book too, as I did in the first one, which, you know, of course, I always notice those things. But yeah, it did leave a lot of questions for another book. Like, for instance, the BBC, they would be like, you know, blah, blah, this happened. Now for a message for our brothers in Ottawa or Montreal. John has a long mustache. What's going on in Canada at this time? But yeah, the book is still definitely good. I think now Forstchen, he kind of accidentally stumbled into the like survival prepper literature world. He didn't quite intend to have that direction, but it was like wholeheartedly picked up and that. But it really feels like he started to read a lot more in that genre. I don't know. I just can't help but think a little bit of James Wesley Rawls in this. Better written than James Wesley Rawls, but some of the same kind of angles in that. And I also picked up a bit of World Made by Hand in this too. I really did. Which, of course, if I were to be writing a book about life without the energy grid, that's where I would go first, maybe. So, who knows what kind of impression those books did put on him. So anyway, if you haven't already checked this book out, it is worth reading. It really is. It was a page-turner. I know everyone always says the second book or second movie or whatever is not as good as the first. And I agree with that statement on this, but I mean, I'm not saying that to take away from this book. Like I said, if you like the first one, it's worth going forward with this because I think there are going to be more. Let me know what you think.